Welcome to the Monetize Your Payments podcast, where we cover the entire payment facilitator ecosystem. If you are a SaaS company, ISV, or a marketplace interested in monetizing your payments, this podcast is for you. You will learn what it takes to monetize your payments, as well as find the vendors, suppliers, and organizations that will help you succeed. You are going to hear success stories, lessons learned, and advice from all sides and all angles across the payment facilitator ecosystem.
My main achievement at Wix is founding Wix Payments, a payment service that allows merchants to manage order and payments from within the Wix ecosystem without needing third-party payment providers. We serve thousands of merchants on a monthly basis and growing tremendously every day.
That was Omer Schatzky, the head of billing and payments at Wix, and this is episode 3 of the Monetize Your Payments podcast. I'm your host, Greg Myers. Omer was born and raised in Israel and currently lives in Tel Aviv. He started in biotechnology and food engineering with the goal of combining his passion for cooking with science, but after 5 years in the Israeli army, he decided to pursue software development. Wix is a world-class platform for do-it-yourself website building that many of you, I'm sure, have heard of. Wix Payments is a payment service that allows their merchants to manage orders and payments from within the Wix ecosystem without needing third-party payment providers. Wix has 180 million users in 190 countries and 3,500 employees worldwide. They have a 360-degree view of their merchants and feel confident that they know their customers better than anyone and can provide a merchant experience that no one else can. Payments plays a huge role in that merchant experience. Omer provides some great insights into how and why they brought payments in-house. We've got a great episode this week, so let's get started. Hi, everyone, and welcome to the show. Our special guest today is Omer Schatzky, the head of billing and payments at Wix. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Greg. Super happy to join this podcast.
Good. So tell our audience a little bit about yourself, maybe where you grew up, where you went to school, maybe where you currently live, a few things like that.
So I'm from Israel, born and raised in a town called Rishon LeZion, which is a medium town near Tel Aviv. I've been living in Tel Aviv in the past 20 years. And if you're not familiar with Tel Aviv, it is one of the most amazing cities worldwide. It has a great sandy beach, and it's the main hub in Israel for any business, culture, nightlife, and social activities. I started my professional career studying biotechnology and food engineering. And the goal was at the time to combine my passion for cooking and food, of course, with science, which I really liked at school. I served for 5 years in the Israeli army as an officer in the food division. And then I realized what a food engineer actually does. So I decided that is not the actual career path I wanted to pursue. In addition to that, I also worked as a cook in a top-notch catering services for 5 years. I considered studying cooking in France, but eventually decided to leave the passion for food at a personal level and made a transition to software development. I started as a developer in one of the leading insurance company in Israel in their billing department. And then I moved to various high-tech companies working as a team leader, system architect, and then I made kind of a detour into product and professional services management, and eventually landed in the payment space 10 years ago. In addition to food, I also enjoy traveling to different places in Israel and across the globe, or at least I used to, before Corona went and ruined everything. But turquoise, water, and white sand are the preferred features where I'm looking for. So that's about it.
Okay. And so today you're the head of billing and payments at Wix. So you talked a little bit about you started in billing and then added payments. So in that role today, what exactly are your responsibilities?
So as you can understand from the title, I'm heading the billing and payments domain across Wix. If you haven't heard of Wix, we are a world-class platform for do-it-yourself website building. And in Wix, we have two, I would say, different flavors of billing and payments. The first one is where Wix acts as a merchant, selling premium services or subscription to our users like plans, domain, and G Suite. The second one is where Wix is helping users to sell to their customers. We provide all the relevant infrastructure for merchants to be able to accept online and offline payments. I'm the domain expert when it comes to billing and payments at Wix, and I'm the lead focal point for ongoing and future product improvements, strategic partnership, and new ventures. My main achievement at Wix is founding Wix Payment, a payment service that allows merchants to manage order and payments from within the Wix ecosystem without needing third-party payment providers. We serve thousands of merchants on a monthly basis and growing tremendously every day.
Okay, and I know Wix as a public company, you may not be able to tell a whole lot, but maybe share what you can about the size, profitability, number of employees, anything about the company that you can share.
We provide a world-class platform to over 180 million users in 190 countries. We're empowering everyone to express themselves and build their business whenever they are entrepreneurs, designers, developers, musicians, photographers, or restaurant owner. They will find a specialized feature set to create a professional website and manage their business. For example, we provide users with the ability to sell tickets to events, both online and offline. Fitness instructors can use Wix Booking to let their customers pay and sign to classes. We have an amazing e-com platform for users to build stores, manage catalogs, and do everything that is associated with running an online store. When it comes to our, I would say, business results, Wix is one of the luckiest companies that has grown dramatically since COVID-19. The trends that began late March continues throughout the second quarter, and we had an amazing record-setting results. So business were able to create in a very simple manner an online store, deliver goods and services, and they got all the tools and services that they needed to establish this online presence. We also added some very crucial features to our online solution, like drop shipping, sales tax calculation, etc., etc. And our quarter was just record-breaking quarter for us. We have now more than 5 million subscription on Wix. We added 9.3 million registered users in Q2, which is 64% growth year over year. Our collections were around 270 million, which is around 33% growth year over year. We're also recruiting in a very fast pace nowadays. We have more than 3,500 employees worldwide.
So obviously, I guess it's one of the fortunate things, which is sad to say about COVID, is that so much more business has moved online, right? I would assume that e-commerce, I read something today that said like 44% growth of e-commerce year over year. I would assume that means a lot of people are coming to Wix to open stores and grow their business. Maybe they were retail and they need to shift. So I would assume that trend is really a tailwind for you guys.
Exactly. And again, we built a fast lane process for merchants to take their offline store, import their catalog, and build an online store within minutes. We spend a lot of manpower, development, support, all the relevant, I would say, key features or key services for merchants to really establish a beautiful and full-fledged store in a very short period of time. And the number of stores that we saw that actually opened throughout the past few months is just a huge growth.
Yeah, that's great. So obviously, any e-commerce business needs to take payments from customers. So let's dive in and talk a little bit more detail about the payments functionality. And you mentioned you launched Wix Payments. So talk about what you guys do to help customers collect payments.
in Wix, we call it a company. The company, I would say, term at Wix is a designated business unit that has all the relevant entities to be able to create a product or different kind of services. So for payments, we have a designated company called Payments by Wix. And our mission is to provide Wix users with the best way for them to accept payments and manage funds, both online and on the go. And of course, our flagship service is Wix Payments, where we allow merchants to manage orders and payments all in one place. We provide a very simple and quick setup, and we make it easy for merchants to accept payments both on their site and through their mobile. We started our service in Brazil in early 2019, then added US in early 2019, and Europe to follow. We are now operating in 14 European countries. Where we do not operate, we offer our users an easy connection to third-party payment providers.
Okay. And what was the business decision or business process maybe that you went through to decide, hey, we no longer want to just offer our customers third-party options. We want to integrate this into what we do. How was that decision made?
Okay. So first of all, we used to work and we're still working with payment providers, right? So this is the basic stuff. But we believe that we know how to serve our users better than anyone else. We are a user-centric company. We are constantly talking to our users, and we're aiming to serve every user at Wix. And another very important thing is that the power of our platform is that we see a 360 overview of our users' business from the moment they choose a template to building their catalog and accepting online payments. And we believe that in order for us to provide the best solution, we need to do it by ourselves. We are working with acquiring bank and third-party services, but at the end of the day, we are the ones driving the communication and take care of the integration hassle for the simplicity of the use. For example, we know that our business, our merchants are small, even tiny. And when they are to go to those third-party services, sometimes just they kind of overwhelmed and they don't know when to start. And it's something that is essential and critical in each and every step of the funnel where our users are building their business. We know how to serve them with the right tone of voice that they will understand exactly what they need to be doing. And this is where payments, which is, I think, one of the most complicated part of the journey, finding the right way to serve them is just critical. And we know how to do it in the best manner.
And so you're managing all of the onboarding and underwriting and all of that.
Yeah, correct. I just want to mention another example that is relevant here. There are cases where Wix Payment cannot serve those merchants. For example, we recently launched a solution for US merchants who wants to sell hemp and hemp-derived CBD products. We cannot accept those merchants within Wix Payment. So we found two partners that can do it. We created a designated funnel that would guide those merchants towards a successful payment setup. And then at the end of the day, Wix as a platform can serve those merchants. And again, if it's not Wix Payment, we will find the partner to serve those kind of businesses.
Great. So how important do you think this payments component is to your overall business?
It is super important, okay, to begin with. At the end of the day, payments is basically the air for any kind of business, right? We could provide them all the tools and building their catalog and adding new marketing service, et cetera, et cetera. But at the end of the day, in order for them to grow their business, they need to be able to accept online payments. So payments is super important for, I would say, any business who would like to grow, whether it's an online or offline. So Wix invests a lot in this area. First of all, by establishing this designated business unit. And we are growing, this specific company is growing dramatically. We recently added to our kind of advisory board Dr. Chedvaber, who was the supervisor of banks in Israel, to actually assist us with building the right payment services to our users. So the company invests money, knowledge, legal assets, whatever is needed for us to build and grow and really provide the profound kind of services that would assist each and every merchant throughout Wix.
Okay. And you talked a lot about how offering this as a Wix product or service as opposed to outsourcing it has really helped the customer experience, making that frictionless and easy. What are other benefits of bringing that payments in-house? I mean, do you see increased revenue? What other aspects do you see are benefits of bringing payments in-house?
So we started Wix Payment first and foremost as a solution to solve a customer problem. Okay? It was not about the revenue. It was not about collection. It was just to be able to solve a problem. And this is basically why we started in Brazil. If you're not familiar with the Brazilian market, is one of the toughest market to work in, especially when it comes to payments. Our users were facing a very cumbersome and difficult onboarding, where many of them were failing during the process. There were many problems in the integration and the service that they got. And we looked at, okay, which market we're going to make the best or the ultimate change for those merchants. And this is where we started, why we chose Brazil. In addition to that, Wix is a very customer experience fanatics. We are investing time and effort in each byte and each word that we are putting in our interface and finding, I would say, the right tone, voice, look to pinpoint, I would say, and really help that specific problem. This is our goal, the ultimate goal. And of course, then it became successful and we launched in other countries and after Brazil. But the feedback that we got from our Brazilian users was, yes, this is something different. This is something that does not exist elsewhere in Brazil. And I think that was one of my most happiest moments at Wix, to get this feedback directly from users to see, yes, we made a difference for them.
Yeah, as a differentiator, that's great too. I hadn't really thought about that, but that certainly makes sense. You always sort of read about you do it for the customer experience or the added revenue. And I guess in some cases you do it because no one else is. So it makes your company a differentiator for your company. So that's fascinating. Let's dive into a couple other things. So as you were working on this, and obviously as the head of this and getting it started, I'm sure you were in all the gory details, but how big of an issue were things like the legal requirements around agreements with merchants, risks like payment risk, you're taking on the risk, I assume. There's reputational risk, all those risk factors, and then obviously fraud and security. I mean, those are three big topics, but how big of an issue were those types of things as you were doing this?
It is most definitely a big issue, as you can imagine, when we provide payment services. And it requires not only in-depth understanding of the relevant laws, and again, each country has different laws, whether it's a state level, country level, EU market level, right? We need to find the relevant expert for us to better understand how to operate in the right manner. We need to understand the card scheme regulations and, of course, the acquiring banks in each jurisdiction that we're working at. In addition to that, I think the main challenge here, beside understanding the law and working accordingly, is we need to serve them, at least some of them, to our merchants, to our SMBs that are far from, I would say, understanding those very specific and unique acronym or language that are used in onboarding and underwriting procedures. In addition to that, we need to manage merchant risk, again, throughout their onboarding, as well as their ongoing day-to-day, not just for ourselves, but also for them to be in a good shape. Again, they're doing, I would say, they're kind of baby steps in the financial management world, and we want to educate them with the best practices how to do so. We are spending a lot on creating webinars and tutorials for them to understand why it is so important to have, I would say, how to manage your chargeback, for example. Okay. Again, what is the chargeback? What is the best practice, especially in the times of COVID-19, where you would like to have, I would say, a fairly low chargeback ratio. You don't want to get into fines, etc., etc. And again, in order for you to basically support good customer service, you need to issue a refund whenever a user is asking for a chargeback, right? This is the best practice. But on the other hand, how do I manage my funds? So we created the feature, should you not have enough funds to basically issue a refund, there is the ability for you to top up, and then you could issue a refund. So this is managing the merchant risk and, of course, the transaction risk, the fraud prevention. We're touching the merchant's money at the end of the day. We're not necessarily touching them, but we are just the one that facilitate this payment processing at the end of the day. And this is extremely crucial element for anybody. And of course, merchants that are just building their business. So we have different technologies and supporting monitoring tools and services to make sure that we're doing that in the right manner. And I think going back to the educational part, we're acting as a kind of a mentor, and we want to teach our merchants how to protect from financial losses and any problematic business management. In addition to that, Wix is PCI level 1. So we know how exactly to store cards, and we have a security division that know exactly what needs to be done, because at the end of the day, their merchants' data and their users' data is a critical asset that we need to protect in the best possible way.
Right. So out of everything you did to integrate payments and create this sort of business unit that you've been talking about, what would you say was or is the most painful part?
So I think the most painful part is actually the last mile of when we are QAing the solution, and then you're starting to bump into those edge cases, right? And now you're realizing that many of them are not really working. So after going through a few kind of very painful integration, I actually realized that if you are to choose the right partner, everything is doable, even if the rollout will be delayed in a few weeks or even months. Because at the end of the day, you cannot do a full-fledged due diligence process and check each and every use case before you're signing the contract. Problems will happen, that's for sure. But if you have a great partner next to you, you'll find a way to solve them. And I think, again, it's also super important because you are building partnership for the long run, not just you have one click and you're done. No, this is an ongoing relationship. And I would say in 6 months, you want to have another feature, open a new country, etc., etc. And it is so critical to find a partner that would let you grow and, of course, be next to you to solve problems as they arise.
Yeah, and what I think is interesting is part of what I'm trying to do is educate others in what they may need to do or look out for as they're wanting or thinking about integrating payments into their company. And you mentioned partners. I mean, obviously, no one can do this without partners. So maybe talk a little bit, if you can, about the importance, and maybe if you can, talk about what aspects you built versus you partnered with. If you can't talk about that, maybe just in general terms, talk about that a little, because I think that would be interesting to people to sort of understand what you felt comfortable taking over. Even if you took it over, you probably had partners. So talk maybe a little more in depth about the whole partner and partnership kind of things that you had to do to make this successful.
So we facilitate the entire merchant journey, meaning we provide the user interface for them to complete the onboarding, transaction processing, payout and balance management, and of course, refund and chargeback management, etc., etc. So when we looked for a partner to build Wix Payment, first of all, we were looking for a partner that would provide all the APIs right? For us to be able to build the Wix way of providing payments. So that was the first aspect. Then we wanted to have partners that will be global because, yes, you can manage many partners simultaneously, but it does create kind of a hassle. In addition to that, when we looked at all the supporting services like risk management and underwriting management, et cetera, we wanted the ability to have, I would say, first of all, visibility towards that process because, again, we are the ones that are communicating with our users. We would like to let them know, hey, you're missing that specific part in your website, like terms of use, or you could work with us, but you need to remove that specific product. So we combined third-party service with our own internal tools to be able to create this full experience. So when we looked at the API and, even at the specific error code or error message that we're getting when a user is being declined, we don't want just generic decline. We want a reason, hey, you're missing this or that. So that was part of the technical evaluation. But in addition to that, when we were looking at the partners to be working on, we also looked at, okay, you're working in that specific jurisdiction. In addition to payments, what kind of payment options, what kind of more advanced payment service are you going to offer to us? So I would say the combination of the technical capabilities for us to be able to build our own flavors of payment services, in addition to the strength and global reach of our partners, this is actually the ultimate way. We chose that specific partner because in our kind of matrix, we just checked most of the elements that were critical for us in the decision-making process.
Okay, great. So we've covered a lot of ground here and gotten very detailed on a few things, which I think our audience will really appreciate. So thank you for that. Is there any final thoughts that you have or anything else that you'd like to share about this journey that you've been through to integrate payments into what you guys do?
So I think, and this is actually also my personal take here, the payment industry is fascinating and it is fast changing and we have new disrupting trends and players emerging every day. New regulation like the PSD2 and PII everywhere, just there's no way for you to stop. You need to constantly listen and embrace and I would say adjust to this fast moving industry. But I think on the other hand, our users put their trust and faith in our hand for us to help them to grow and succeed. And I think we need to be extra careful to value that trust. Specifically at Wix, again, as I mentioned before, we are acting not only as a mentor, but also as a responsible adult. We are paving a new road to provide a successful payment processing, but I think this is just the beginning of our journey. And we're growing dramatically. We're opening actually a new office in Miami. So whoever is looking for a job in the risk and underwriting space, I'll be happy to hear from you. And looking worldwide, especially with the COVID-19, online payments is everywhere. We're just at the beginning of this amazing roller coaster. And I'm super happy actually to join this ride and being among this amazing experience that is part of our day-to-day life.
Great. Well, Omer, thank you so much for being on the show. You've shared so many great insights. Again, thank you so much for being here today. I really appreciate your time.
My pleasure.
Thank you for joining us this week on the Monetize Your Payments podcast. Make sure you visit our website at monetizeyourpayments.com, where you can subscribe to the show and where you will find our show notes. If you would like to be on the show or have a suggestion for a guest, please email greg@monetizeyourpayments.com.